Alright, so my projects are getting so big that this little air compressor here is not cutting it. Let's blow out of a straw harder than that thing can. So I just picked up this. This is a Ingersoll Rand or something like that. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but it's this brand right here. It's a well-known brand. Unloaded. This video is going to be basically unloading this thing, wiring up, getting the electrical set up for it, and testing the thing out, see how it works. Alright, that fits good and it looks good right there. So I got some, I'm going to bolt this thing to the floor on some anti-vibration pads. Alright, these concrete anchors here, I just had these here, so I wanted to try to use them, but they're turned out too short, especially after I get these anti-vibration pads in, plus the thickness of this leg. So since this one's already in here, that's not coming back out. I would have to relocate these other holes. So I'm just going to weld a bolt onto this one. Alright, these are a little bit longer. Let's tighten these bolts down. I got all 3 bolts in, Loctited it in. Hopefully this thing works, because that's going to be a pain if I have to take that back out. Alright, let's start on the electrical. Alright, so the way they're wanting you to wire this thing, it's basically a hardwire application. So I am going to wire mine. I'm going to wire mine off of my sub panel here. My main panel is over here, and this is a 100 amp service run to this sub panel. So I'm going to tap into this, put a 30 amp circuit breaker into the sub panel, and then run the wire along the ceiling straight into the compressor. Alright, I don't really have enough, so I'm gonna go back through and try to feed a couple extra feet through. That 6.2 is extremely gnarly to work with. Alright, so in order to get started wiring the breaker up in this sub panel here, got to go outside and click off the sub panel number 2 breaker. Alright, so here's my main panel, and they got it labeled really clearly. Sub panel 2, 125 amp service, and that's off. So let's go check the power and make sure that that is in fact off. Alright, so if you're doing high voltage electrical work, this is probably my favorite tool. It's really easy to use, and it'll instantly show you high voltage power. So it lights up and it's got a beep setting, so you don't even have to touch high voltage. You can just get it near it and the thing will alert. Let's see if we have power coming in on this 125 amp wire. Alright, so we have nothing, so I'm confident that that is off. I'm going to be installing a breaker that's a dual, like this one here. Where the breaker is plugged in, you have 2 hots coming off of it, and your ground is connected to this ground bus down here, and that's all there is to it. Alright, so let's check our power again. Alright, and I'm going to remove this 60 amp here because it's not in service. I'm going to install a 30 amp which will run that compressor safely. Alright, that's wired up. Let's wire it up on the compressor side. Alright, so I'm just going to throw a 1/4 inch coupler on here to test it, because that's the only line I have right now. And then if everything's working good, I'm going to go pick up a 3/8 coupler, and we will be ready to rock and roll. And probably change this up to make this 90 out so that this thing is not sticking out and always getting beat up. Alright, I've been using this thing for about a week or so, and it's doing good. So my central air filter looking a little bit dirty, so let's see what happens if I just blow this thing out. Alright, look at that. That thing's good for another year for sure. I think it's kind of a gimmick that they try to sell these so much. All you gotta do is blow it out. I mean, it's not catching like tiny dust particles, you know what I mean? So that's good as new.